What's up, everyone? Welcome back into Shaw Locals Bears Insider Podcast. It is Tuesday morning, March 5th. Sean, Hammond, and Michal Dwojak are back from Indianapolis after spending the week down there for the NFL Combine. We are just about a week away from the new league year. We got franchise tag deadline today. All kinds of news and stuff to talk about with you guys this morning. Looking forward to spend the next 40 minutes or so with you guys. Sean, Michal, how you guys doing? Sean, how about you first?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Had a great combine last week. It was good to see the some other NFL reporters. Of course, everyone who's down there, players, coaches, scouts, the NFL world. It's always a fun week, and we certainly had some fun last week.
Yeah, Michal, it was your first combine experience down there in Indy. What were your takeaways, man?
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. There was a one night Sean and I went to dinner with some friends, and I'm just looking around, and you got players at one table, agents at another table. It's just you're trying to comprehend what's going on, just what are all these people doing at the same place at the same time. But it was my first time at Indy, and I was pretty impressed with just how Sean and I never really had to go outside. I've been dealing with allergies for the last couple of weeks, and they were clear in Indy because I just never had to go outside with all the sky walks that they have. So that was a pretty impressive setup that Indy has for just hosting different types of events.
Yeah, I was super happy to see that the NFL has decided, at least in the short term, to bring the combine back to Indy. I know they had talked a little bit about potentially moving that around like they've done with the NFL draft, but it's a really nice setup that they have in Indy for the combine. So I'm happy to see they're sticking there.
Yeah, personally, I don't want to see it move. It's so convenient to drive down there for us, and yeah, the setup's super easy. Everything's pretty close. Like Michal said, you could take the walkways and stay inside, get to your hotel and all that. But yeah, it's fun to go out and about, dinner time and see athletes, eating with their agents or whoever their posse, whoever they're hanging out with. It's a good time.
Yeah, it's particularly nowadays, there's a lot less opportunities to kind of get where it's less formal with these guys. Back in the day, when training camp used to be down in Bourbonnais, right? All the reporters would be on the field at practice, but where we actually did a lot of our work was over at the dining hall. We'd sit outside and talk to those guys, go in and have lunch. And it was a lot less formal, and you got to know the guys a lot better. I can remember sitting on a cart with Virginia McCaskey one day down there and get a chance to be kind of in awe that I was sitting there talking with her and a couple other reporters. Just, it's as reporters, as what we do as a business, Indy is really important just because of to be able to get on here and have these conversations that we do with our audience, to get a little bit of that extra insight. It's really helpful, isn't it, guys?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, just getting to talk to people, even just off the record and just, seeing the folks that you don't normally see. We go into Hallis Hall and it's very organized. We see the people we're supposed to see and we don't see anybody else. And so it's good to have other opportunities like the Combine.
And you get you've already seen coming out of that, the news that gets leaked behind the scenes there. I don't know if you guys have seen the Kirk Cousins stuff about him apparently already shopping for a house for the family down in Atlanta. And you're seeing the ripple effects of that coming out of there. All of a sudden, you're hearing Justin Fields connected a couple of new places that we hadn't before the combine, like Las Vegas. All of a sudden popping up a name that I hadn't mentioned before, which I find really interesting with Luke Getsy being out there. But we got a lot to get into, guys. Thank you, everyone who is joining us live on YouTube this morning and on Twitter as well. We really do appreciate it. You guys can, of course, jump into the comments and questions here. We appreciate everything you guys do for us here. I see Alan checking and says, good to see Sean on NBC Sports Chicago. Yeah, Sean, another appearance last night, right?
Yeah, thanks for watching, Alan.
When is that usually? That's football night in America on NBC.
Football night in Chicago.
Football night in Chicago.
Yeah, it's. I think it airs 6 o'clock every day, or around 6 o'clock, something like that. I've been on there every once in a while. It's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And Robert checking in from the UK for us here says we're hoping for some live JJ breaking news here. Yeah, that could be happening at any time. Sean, do you think we're gonna get any? What are the odds at this point that we get a last minute deal on Jalen Johnson?
I'm pretty pessimistic on that. At this point, I think we're looking at the franchise tag. We're a touch under 5 hours from the deadline. I mean, if we haven't heard anything by now, it's not looking good as far as a long-term extension. Certainly it could happen in the next few hours. That's not out of the realm of possibility, but I just have a feeling this is heading towards the franchise tag, towards Jalen Johnson on a 1-year deal worth $19.8 million, I believe is the number for a cornerback this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And one other piece of Bears news that happened last night before we jump into the combine. Bears made a trade sending a 5th-round draft pick to the Buffalo Bills in exchange for interior offensive lineman Ryan Bates. It may be a familiar name to a lot of you guys out there listening. Ryan Bates was someone that the Bears signed to a restricted free agent contract 2 offseasons ago, but the Buffalo Bills matched that. Now the Bears going out and getting their guy. Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, 2 years later, it's as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh man, I shouldn't have forgot about that, because, and I didn't forget about that, but that should have been a thought, I guess, on my mind. I'm surprised to see somebody in the comments says, is Poles going to trade all our draft picks? Yeah, I was surprised. They don't have a ton of picks right now. I was surprised to see them send one, but Bates is a guy who he wasn't a starter last year. You think if you're Buffalo, like if a team really wants him, he's probably expendable, but just because he wasn't in your starting lineup on the offensive line, he was the year before. But yeah, get a really.
I wonder about that, right? Like,
yeah,
that's
obviously that's a really good team. They have a good offensive line. But yeah, it is a little concerning when a guy is a starter 1 year and then he's not the next year.
Particularly when they match like the restricted free agent contract, coming out of that, they give him a full year to start and then decided not, you're under contract, but we're going to move in a different direction in the starting lineup.
Clearly, Ryan Poles and his team have something, they see something, there's something they like there. Maybe there's the analytics folks are involved. There's something about Ryan Bates' game that they really like, and they could potentially see. They wouldn't make a move like this if they didn't see the potential for him to be in the starting lineup and maybe even fill that starting center spot that you currently have a hole at right now.
Yeah, I think the versatility at guard and center, it's potential. I think there's the potential that they plug him in at center there, particularly like if they're thinking about they don't want to spend that money in free agency, or they don't want to have to spend a 1st-round pick on a center. Maybe it's a day 2 pick where they want to have a veteran that could start for at least that first year, Sean, something like that. But overall, even if it's just a depth piece, this is a team that needed to get deeper on the offensive line. So I'd like it if that is the plan.
Yeah, I do too. I like that if it's the plan. I know there's a couple of really good centers at the top of the draft, but it's obviously much tougher once you get, past the Jackson Powers Johnsons and the Graham Bartons. It's harder to find a day 1 starter, the further and further down the draft order you go. And certainly if you have a rookie quarterback, you're not going to take that chance with a young center as well. So I think it makes sense to bring in a veteran. I thought they would be looking to do that in free agency, and maybe they still could. But yeah, I'm not surprised that they're going for a veteran at that spot.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump into the combine a little bit here. Robert Phillips checking in and asking, Michael, what were the highlights of the combine for you guys? Anyone stand out that you weren't expecting?
I mean, obviously, you had the big guys like Caleb Williams just got all the rage. He's just biggest crowd, people like lining up 2 hours or an hour before just to like talk to him with the potential to talk to him. But a lot of our area guys kind of really impressed me. Just, some guys that maybe a lot of people don't know about. You got Tyler Nubin, who had a pretty cool story from St. Charles North. He's expected to be probably the top safety that I know, the Bears could potentially look at. I don't know, obviously, if the guy gets a 2nd-round pick, but you got guys like that. You got obviously Crystal Lake South's Trevor Keegan, who could potentially be a backup. I know he graded that in that way. And you got Hinsdale Central, Kieran Amigaje, who's trying to prove something with an ability to, compete in the NFL after competing at Yale. But, some of the local guys that I got a chance to talk to really impressed me just with their ability to, kind of be in that moment and kind of, JJ McCarthy obviously gets all the headlines, and, Tyler Nubin kind of gets the headlines too. But some of our other area guys who are, even Bucky Irving too, a running back, is probably a top 5 running back, I'd say, based on how other people are grading him. So those guys, a lot of people probably don't talk about or even know about. When we went to the combine, we were kind of like, oh yeah, I forgot this guy was like from the area. But all of those 3 guys are kind of just like, sleepers who I think potentially could have long NFL careers if they're put in the right spots and, get their opportunities.
Bucky Irving is a really interesting one. He's a Hillcrest grad, which is down in Country Club Hills, down in South suburban Chicago there. He started out at Minnesota. Real name is Marquise Irving, actually, and ended up at Oregon. I think he's listed at 5'7". I think.
Yeah, he's a smaller guy. That's actually one of the things when we were talking to him at the podium, a lot of reporters are asking, well, a lot of today's running backs, you want big, sturdy guys who, can break off tackles and that kind of stuff, and you're not really able to do that. And Bucky, without really, wasting time, kind of was like, well, Barry Sanders was fine, and with that kind of size, and was able to work. I know obviously the NFL's in a different spot 20 years ago or 30 years ago at this point than it is now. Obviously more athletic guys than you had 3 decades ago. But Bucky's fairly confident. Like, he's got the speed, he's got the ability, he's really consistent with the ball. He doesn't fumble a lot. So that's something that any coach is going to love. If you don't fumble the ball, you secure the ball, you get good yardage, and they're able to throw you in there on 3rd down, 2nd down, whatever the scenario is. He's someone that I'm sure someone will definitely take a flyer on and be like, well, let's see what happens here. Definitely later in the later rounds of the draft.
Sean, Michael mentioned JJ McCarthy. Not all the quarterbacks worked out on Saturday. Based on the kind of the reports coming out of the combine, where do you think these guys stack up? How many? And this is what's kind of important for the Bears' purposes, right? Like, I think we're to the point now here where the odds are overwhelmingly in favor that we're going to see a Justin Fields trade and the Bears take Caleb Williams at number 1, right? That's not a foregone conclusion, but a heavy, heavy favorite to take place. The question in the Bears' perspective then becomes what happens at number 9. And that's where this quarterback evaluation comes in, Sean. Like, after the combine, where do you stand, and how many of these guys are going in the top 10?
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine, you're looking at Drake May, you're looking at Jaden Daniels, and then JJ is kind of the one who's on the cusp there. I come out of the combine thinking that, and hearing that it seems like there's some teams that are really high on this guy, and maybe he could sneak into that top 10. I don't know if that's what's ultimately going to happen, but he's a young guy. He comes from an offense where he didn't have to throw as much as a Drake May, who had like 1 million pass attempts last season. And there's that potential to keep getting better. And I think that's what really excites a lot of teams. But at the same time, I say that, but it seems like every year or many years, we also have to caution ourselves. We get excited about these quarterbacks and we can see, 4 of them going in the top 10, top 5, whatever. And ultimately, that doesn't always play out every year. I'm thinking of like, the Justin Fields year where we weren't sure, we were wondering if there were going to be 4 in the top, 5 or 6 picks, and ultimately Justin and Mac Jones fell. And I could see that scenario sort of playing out again. I could see JJ lasting into the teens, maybe to 20 or something like that. And yeah, you're right. Like, that really does affect the Bears when you're sitting at 9. The number of quarterbacks is, if 4 quarterbacks go ahead of 9, that's pushing another receiver down the board. That's pushing another, potentially the first defender might not be off the board yet. There's going to be options there. I really, I enjoyed listening to the receivers the other day last week. Those guys, it's a really exciting receiver class at the top. And if you're the Bears, I mean, best case scenario is one of those top 3 guys drops you at 9.
Yeah. Michael, what do you got?
I will say, like, I got a chance to listen to Roma Dunze talk, and if the Bears can somehow get him at 9 or even like move up a spot or two, I feel like they should definitely do it. If you could have like Caleb Williams or Roma Dunze, like I know I feel like everyone, from the weekend is just like Roma Dunze stole the show. Like he was great at his media availability. You saw videos of him, being the last one there, like working out so he can get like I think it was like the cone drills. He like wanted to get a specific time. Like if you can do whatever you can to get Roma Dunze and Caleb Williams together, and then you got obviously DJ Moore as your number one. That's quite the trio you have there. Just being able to put that kind of talent offensively together. Obviously, it'll take some time to come together, but I do think that if the Bears can somehow do it, and I know some people have reported that they might move up to get Roma Dunze, but I don't know how many of the teams in front of them are going to be willing to move their pick after what Roma Dunze kind of accomplished here at the combine this past week.
I'm a huge Roma Dunze guy. You've seen comparisons from him this week of AJ Green, Larry Fitzgerald. I was texting someone, Julio Jones is someone that he really reminds me of. And to see him perform like that at the combine wasn't surprising. I think a lot of people kind of expect that. I don't think I'm trying. What I'm trying to say here is he's not going to be there at 9. He performed. There were high expectations going into that, and he even blew those out of the water. It's weird. If we were in a year where Marvin Harrison Jr. wasn't in this draft class, I think Roma Dunze would probably be right up there at that first receiver taken would be a top 5 pick. But because Marvin Harrison Jr. is just such a high talent. Let's bring this back for a second here, because that goes back to the quarterback stuff, right, guys? And let's tie this into free agency really quickly here, because we were talking about Kirk Cousins apparently looking for a house in Atlanta. I found the Mike Evans re-signing in Tampa to be interesting. I think that's a sign that they're going to make a push to bring Baker Mayfield back, because they're at a point that Tampa core is like, they could go either way. You could either blow that up and say this is the time to rebuild, or we try and stick this together for another 2 to 3 years with a quarterback like Baker and see if we can build on a weak division, build on what we had, and maybe get there, right? So let's say Baker stays. Let's say Kirk Cousins ends up in either Minnesota or Atlanta. Like, where does that leave us with teams that are looking for a quarterback? Like, we know Washington's taking one at number 2. Right? Or would be very surprised if they didn't. Outside of that, who else is looking in the top 10 for a quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, I'd throw New England in that conversation.
Definitely.
Whether they would want a rookie or a veteran is I guess to be determined. You could throw the New York Giants at 6 into that conversation. They could be a landing spot for a guy who might sit a year, like a JJ McCarthy. With Daniel Jones there, I'd throw, Tennessee and Atlanta, depending on what happens in free agency. If they do get Kirk Cousins, either way, they're a team looking for a quarterback. So you're talking about, counting the Bears, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams, in that top 8 who could be in the market for a quarterback in some fashion.
Yeah. So I'm going to put you on the spot, Sean, and we're here before free agency. Yeah. I'm going to put us all 3 of us right now. How many quarterbacks do you think go in the top 10?
I'm going to say 4.
I agree. I think it's going to.
I'm going to say 4. Yeah. I'm still thinking about that, but I'm going to say 4.
Yeah. I think the 3 obvious guys, and then I think JJ probably sneaks himself into the back end of the top 10 somewhere for a team that's willing to take a chance. If you guys haven't yet, I'm going to direct people away from ShawLocal.com. Make sure you go to ShawLocal.com. Stick there all week. We got a lot of content coming your way. But if not, and actually, Sean, you mentioned you linked to this in your latest piece coming out of the combine that you can find right now at ShawLocal.com. But Albert Breer had his piece coming out of the combine, had a lot of good nuggets out of there. And some of that stuff about JJ McCarthy was interesting about that leadership qualities. But the one thing that I do wonder, and you're starting to see it a little bit, is he talked about like JJ missed a few throws to his left, right? He also talked about teams kind of waking up to their evaluation. This is where we get into the Caleb Williams, Justin Fields stuff too. Specifically when it comes to Caleb Williams, I guess, is teams are realizing like that athleticism at the quarterback position can overcome things like not making every throw to your left, right? So I do wonder a little bit is like, will that hurt JJ's stock? Does that bring someone up a little bit, like a Bo Nix a little bit more, even though he kind of, like, you know what you got out of him? I'm interested to find out like how this QB evaluation process is changing, because it does feel like it is moving pretty rapidly at this point.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. I think ultimately you're going to put a lot more stock into what you saw JJ do on the field with Michigan last year than his combine workout. Obviously, those things matter. Like they are a point on your evaluation, you know, a bullet point or whatever. But you know, I don't think it's going to hurt him all that much. I still think, yeah, Jaden Daniels is obviously the athletic dude of this bunch. He's the runner. He's the guy who can make something happen when a play breaks down and you just want to run with the ball. He's got some really impressive speed. You know, Caleb is, you know, can do that too. He's not as fast as Jaden, but he is creative in the fact that he can still find throws when he's running outside the pocket. And you know, I don't think that's going to hurt JJ's stock all that much, but he is such a tough one to figure out because yeah, I could see it. I could see him going in the top 10. Somebody commented, you know, it'd be hard to see him falling past Minnesota or Denver. And yeah, I kind of agree with that. But it's really hard to know with a guy like that who didn't throw as much at the college level as some of these other guys.
Thinking of Denver, you just put that thought in my head. Either of you guys, where does Russell Wilson land?
That's a tough one. I keep
find
thinking
a starting gig.
I keep thinking Pittsburgh maybe. Gosh, I gotta think he finds a starting gig, but I don't know. I mean,
he was
Did he
really
go back
bad.
to Seattle? I know, obviously, you know, Pete Carroll isn't there anymore, and I don't know how that relationship was, but I don't know how much Seattle's in love with Geno Smith.
I have a hard time seeing the people in Seattle. You know, that relationship deteriorated quite a bit. Even with Pete gone, I have a hard time seeing that.
Maybe Minnesota if Kirk Cousins
if
was
Kirk's
to go.
Gone, maybe Minnesota.
Yeah, they go the veteran route because I think from everything you're hearing out of Minnesota, like they prefer to keep Kirk Cousins. It sounds like they want a veteran quarterback. When now don't want to have to try and develop a rookie with Justin Jefferson. What I think are we going into year 3 or year 4 with Justin Jefferson? I can't remember here, but anyway,
this is year 4.
Yeah, so like that's a team ready to win. Guys, let's see if I can go back up here. You know, I know Robert had asked earlier here. Let's see if I can say it's find this here. He had asked here. I've missed a few of these lately. Just checking in, but are you in the draft Caleb camp or trade the number 1 camp? Michael, how about you?
Oh, I'm definitely in the draft Caleb camp, not only just for his talents and, you know, how the potential of what he could be, but just the whole quarterback clock is really important to me. Just, you know, I don't know if you can commit that kind of money to Justin and you're just going to have to. That's just what the market's going for, whether that's because of Daniel Jones or, you know, other like mediocre quarterbacks. But I think, you know, you draft a young, you know, quarterback that people are calling, you know, generational. I know we use that term a lot, but he does have a lot of great talented skills with it. And you have the money then to use whatever or do whatever you want with for the next 4 years. So it's just kind of like, you know, I know we hear this a lot where it's like if the Bears were picking at 9, this isn't even probably a conversation, but like you got lucky, you're somehow with the number 1 pick. I don't think you need to think about it too much and like overthink this. Just do the rational thing and draft the generational quarterback, save money, and build around him for the next 5 years.
John, how about you?
Yeah, I'm totally on board with everything Michael just said. I think it makes too much sense. You're right. Don't overthink it. Get the guy who has been basically anointed the number 1 pick for like the last 2-3 years in this draft. And, you know, the creativity is there. You like all the things you see from him. I thought he did a really nice job during his media session. I don't know what you guys thought, but I think he, I thought he was a pretty good presence up there. I don't have any, concerns or questions about his makeup. I think he's, everything you're looking for in a starting quarterback. And obviously the Bears have to make sure that he fits what they want to do. But yeah, I think they're going to trade Justin Fields. The return might not be what everyone's hoping for, especially as we've gone along in this process. And, free agency is getting near. That's only going to take teams out of the conversation if he's not dealt between now and Monday. As soon as Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill, Russell Wilson sign with places, those are as far as finding Justin a starting spot, those are going to take some teams out of the running.
I agree on the Kirk Cousins and Baker Mayfield one. I don't know about Russell Wilson and Ryan Tannehill, right? Like, if I'm a team, and this is different for every GM, right? I'd rather take a chance on Justin Fields at this point than I would on Ryan Tannehill and Russell Wilson, particularly because, you're gonna. So the problem is, if you trade for Justin Fields, you have him at one cost-controlled year. Then you have to pick up that fifth-year option at what, $25 million, somewhere in that, I want to say.
Yeah, something like that.
It's like $25.2 million. It's a lot. So you're essentially, if you trade for Justin Fields, and I guess this is the way to do it. Like, if you're trying to compare to Russell Wilson or Ryan Tannehill, because those guys are probably getting multi-year contracts, probably with some void years at the back end of them. My guess would be you're probably looking at like a 4 or 5 year deal where it's actually like a 2 or 3 year deal for some of those guys. So then you're making the comparison of, do we want to pay Russell Wilson for 2 or 3 years, or do we want to pay Justin Fields for 2 years, right? And if I'm a GM, I'm taking the upside of Justin Fields and not the decline of Russell Wilson. But that's just me.
Yeah, I think Russell Wilson or Ryan Tannehill could land in places where they're drafting a rookie quarterback. Maybe they want, Jaden Daniels to sit behind Russell Wilson. Maybe they want JJ McCarthy to sit behind Ryan Tannehill. Or maybe they want Kenny Pickett to sit behind Ryan Tannehill in Pittsburgh. A situation like that where a guy could, he might sign a 2 or 3 year deal, but really it's a 1 year deal. And, after this year, they cut him or whatever. Another thought that, we were talking before we went on NBC Sports last night, Josh Schrock was mentioning, what about the possibility of whoever trades for Fields declines that 5th year option and sets up a contract similar to what the Packers did with Jordan Love, where they basically gave him like a one, I forget what it was, like a 1 or 2 year extension, or maybe it was a one year extension with an option on the 2nd year, just to at a little bit, lower cost, just sort of to give him the opportunity to prove it. And that could be a realistic opportunity for whoever is taking on Justin Fields. Cause I don't know if you want to guarantee $25 million to this guy.
I got distracted down here because I see CJ Williams said 6 for Dan Feeney, and I completely forgot that the Bears traded away a 6th round pick last. Was that during training camp that happened? It was last summer.
that was clearly an overreaction to Tevin Jenkins' calf injury in August, and they traded a 6th round pick for Dan Feeney, and he might have only really played in like one game. Or at least started only one game.
Yeah, I think we're all 3 of us are in the camp, and most of Chicagoland is in camp of feeling pretty good about what Ryan Poles has done. That one is going to go in the did not work out bid, though. 6th round pick for Dan Feeney. Going back to what Robert had asked, you guys both are in the camp of trade Justin Fields. I had said earlier on this podcast or earlier this offseason that I was much more on that fence. I will say now, here we are, March 5th. I'm completely on board with the trade Justin Fields. And that's mostly because every sign is pointing toward that Caleb Williams does have a good head on his shoulder, that he is someone that is going to be a good locker room presence. I think you had that confirmed, at least that the Bears believe that, by the fact that they were trying to get him in-house for a visit so early, something that usually doesn't take place until after pro days here. You know, you're usually looking at late March, early April. The Bears tried to get him in there basically right out of the combine. I'm assuming that they were trying to get his medicals done so they could get that cleared out of the way and essentially put a bow on it. Right, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, that was what Albert Breer reported, that they were trying to get him in as soon as this week. Ultimately, that didn't work out, and he's going to come sometime after his pro day, which is March 20th. Yeah, that would seem to me. It sounds like an indication that, you know, they wanted to get those medicals done. That's obviously important, and that's important combined with the fact that if you're trying to trade Justin Fields, from the Bears' perspective, the sooner the better, because like we said, teams are going to sign quarterbacks in free agency. Teams are going to make up their mind what they're going to do at the quarterback position. And it's just going to have a more teams could be looking for Justin Fields before free agency than after. And it's only going to make it harder to do. You're only going to limit your options the longer you wait. I don't know.
I'll push back against that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll push back because that is true, but it's true early on. But once that first wave of free agency passes, then what teams are saying, okay, I'm not picking one or two. I didn't get, that veteran free agent. I have to make a move now. Like, I don't want to be, you know what I'm saying? Like, does that narrow it down?
And that's the thing. As soon as that's a fair argument, as soon as Kirk Cousins and Baker Mayfield are off the board and signed somewhere, there's probably some teams out there that had Justin Fields as option C, as the third guy on their list. And maybe at that point, Ryan Pohl's phone starts ringing and things get serious about moving Justin Fields. That's entirely possible too, Kyle.
Yeah. Michael, what do you think?
I am curious. I know that there's been a lot of theories of, the Bears probably won't keep, both Fields and Caleb, but I am curious to see whether Poles will. Do you keep them until you keep them through training camp? Maybe someone gets injured. Obviously, you saw it happen last year with Aaron Rodgers. He got injured in week 1. You figure his trade capital is probably much higher, closer to the start of the season because, you have an injured guy and Justin Fields is probably better than most backups in the league. So I am curious. I'm curious to see what you guys think of just how real is the possibility that, Ryan Poles doesn't get what he wants the next couple weeks and people are offering him, a third or even a fourth because they're like, well, we know you're drafting Caleb Williams. Why would we give you, higher draft capital if we know you're trying to get rid of this guy? So I am curious to see how real the possibility that is. I know obviously not a lot of people are saying it is possible, but you could keep both and you trade Justin Fields a little bit later and you could potentially get him higher. Obviously you don't want someone to get injured. You never wish for an injury, but that does happen in this sport. And you could potentially trade Justin then and really get higher reward as opposed to just being like, we got to get rid of him now. And we just want to be done with this.
That's a fantastic point. I mean, is it worth the headache you might create if you keep both those guys on the roster? Yeah, if your best offer is a 4th round pick, are you taking the deal now or are you going to wait it out and hope somebody will get hurt? Week 1, 2, 3, every single year there's a quarterback that gets hurt early in the season. And we all saw, what Joe Flacco did last year. Obviously that's a much more veteran guy, won a Super Bowl, but there's going to be opportunities. Minnesota last year too. Personally, if it's me, I think I'm taking what I can get for Justin and moving on. Because I don't know if you want to have both those guys in that locker room. I don't know if you want to create the unnecessary drama around your quarterback position. If you're drafting Caleb Williams, you're drafting Caleb Williams to be the guy. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see a scenario where both of those guys are in the locker rooms because even at the start of training camp, I do think there's a possibility, Michael, where this does take longer than we expect because of teams playing chicken and waiting for free agency and the draft. It could be a post-draft scenario. Could it drive down the price or drive up the price, however you want to phrase that, to get it back to a 2nd round pick? I thought there was going to be a fairly robust market for Justin Fields. I don't know if trying to hold out into the summer is going to create that much more of a market, though. I think I personally, if you're going to draft Caleb Williams, I probably just take what I can get before the draft for Justin Fields.
And here's another thought too. If you have Justin Fields as your backup to Caleb Williams, and you're waiting for a team you're waiting for a quarterback somewhere to get hurt, are you really going to get that much more than like a 4th round pick for your backup quarterback? I don't know if you are. I don't know if a team's gonna really get that desperate to get this guy. And two, another thoughts just keep popping in my head. What do you do with the 5th year option then too? Are you declining that? You have to make that decision by May 2nd. You got to make that decision in 2 months. You're probably declining that in this situation.
If you're a trading team, or if you're the Bears?
If you're keeping both of them. No.
Oh.
If you're the Bears and you don't want to trade Justin now, you're probably declining that, which means he's on a 1-year deal. You're probably not getting all that much more for him in a trade at the trade deadline or sometime next season.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. And obviously, Sean, Ryan pulls, much more than, I do or anything like that. But I'm just curious, based on what we've seen from Ryan, whether he's just like, I want to know what I'm doing. Like we saw that kind of with the first, overall pick last year, where he just got it done a week after combine week. Like he knew, like, I feel like he's kind of seems like a GM who's just kind of like, I want to know what we're doing. I want to move on with our future. And he did really emphasize how he wants to do right by Justin, just trying to help him figure out his situation so he's not really in limbo. Like I do think that the team actually likes Justin a lot. It just happens that they have a better prospect than Justin right now.
Yeah, I think the fact that Ryan keeps bringing up, how many different scenarios could play out, that tells me that, he really is thinking about all these different things. And I mean, yes, does he want to know what the plan is? Absolutely. I'm sure he does, but there's so many variables, especially when you're talking trades. Like you got to find another team. Some of that stuff is not in your control. And so I don't think that he necessarily, knows exactly what he's going to get for Justin, or I do think he probably knows, whether or not he wants to have both these guys in the locker room. I don't think that you would. I'm sure he has an opinion on that. Kyle, there's the comment. Let's see. Throw CJ's comment up there. Why do we discount the professionalism of these players? I don't think that that's even what we're saying. It's not necessarily that Justin Fields and Caleb Williams are going to be, going at it with each other. Like it's players in that locker room are going to have opinions on which quarterback is better for the team.
Yeah.
That's just a fact.
Yeah. I think that's the best way to look at it. It's not those two quarterbacks going at it, Sean. That's exactly the right way to look at it. You don't want to divide the locker room.
And it would happen. And on top of that, I know like anything outside the building is less important, but at the same time, I mean, just think of all the conversations surrounding the Bears for the entire summer and training camp. It would just be unnecessary drama that you've created, and it would dominate the conversation. And I don't think the Bears want any of that.
And Justin Fields he's a really professional dude. He's a stand-up dude. He seems to get it. With that being said, I think there are reasonable limits you can put on any human being in a stressful situation, and asking what is he? It's 20. How old is Justin now? Mid-20s. 20. Yeah.
Birthday.
It's his birthday today. Happy birthday, Justin, by the way.
Yeah.
I did wish him a happy birthday, by the way. I was looking forward to see how they were going to approach that.
You're asking a 25-year-old football player who's been an alpha his entire football career to sit on the bench when he's looking to get paid not some money, but many, 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 many monies. I don't see a quarterback or any professional willing to sit silently and just allow that to happen.
Yeah,
even the
and
best
look, he's
professional.
not a bad quarterback. He's probably a top 15 quarterback. Is he top 10? I don't think so, but he's like,
well, top fit. Well,
you don't think so?
top 15.
Yeah, that doesn't even necessarily put you in the playoffs.
Yeah,
I would say top 20.
I would say maybe
Oh,
top.
he's definitely top 20. I would say he's in that 15, 16 range in my book.
I think that's fair. And the question has always been or it shouldn't have, it hasn't always been, right? But the question now with Justin is like, if he is in that 15 to 16 range, can he get up to that 5 to 6 range or even higher than that? And that's where that question comes into, or where this debate all comes back to. But, yeah, I mean, that does come into it. Like, he's not a bust, and he's not a guy that,
No.
he's still trying to play for that contract. Like, if Daniel Jones can get himself $150 million, Justin Fields certainly can play it well enough to that level to get himself $150 million.
Absolutely the truth right there. That's at the end of the day, that's what these guys are worried about. Yeah, that's what Justin Fields needs to keep his eye on the prize, because if Daniel Jones can get that kind of money, Justin Fields absolutely can too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, we got to wrap this up in a few minutes, but what have we not talked about from the combine? What else do you guys got down there from Indy?
I had one thought that I was kind of interested. Sean mentioned earlier about, how professional Caleb Williams was and that kind of stuff. And he did, everything well. But something that I kind of noticed in Albert Breer's column is about a new era of athletes, where you got these like professional guys. You got like Marvin Harrison, who's like not doing anything, just meeting with teams. You got Caleb Williams, who's like, why do I have to put my medical information for all 32 teams? Like, I'll just do it for whatever. Like, I am curious to see how the Bears kind of can, I don't know if handle or manage is the right word, but just, kind of coexist with a player who is very like minded and like knowing like, I'm going to protect my rights. I'm going to do what like is best for my interest. Like, obviously, he cares about his teammates from what we've heard, and like he's a good teammate and a good athlete, but it is clear that Caleb Williams and his like family, like they care about what's going to happen to Caleb Williams. So they've shown that they're not afraid to break precedent. And I'm curious to see how the Bears kind of handle that, because the Bears, given their past, have not always handled every situation the best way. So I am curious to see, how do they handle a modern athlete who's not going to do everything because that's just the way it's always been done.
I think that's a fair concern, Michael. Particularly if the old guard was in charge more with the Bears. I do feel like they've turned to a new chapter with Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren. They seem to be adapting to the marketplace better than they used to. If we were having this conversation a couple of years ago, I think that's probably a stronger concern than it would be now, Sean.
Yeah, Ryan Poles is he's certainly not the age of some of these rookies, but he's young enough where I have no doubts that he connects well with the players. And I think that his presence is definitely going to help with some of that. I do think it's an interesting point. We see Caleb skipping the medicals. We see Marvin Harrison Jr. Just doing his own thing, not doing the combine, not doing a pro day. I think we're kind of heading that direction with some of these top prospects in terms of, maybe 5-10 years down the road. A lot of the guys in the top 15 might not be doing some of this stuff. I think, you still got 300 plus guys at the combine. A lot of those guys are trying to prove themselves and get a chance in the league. A lot of those guys are going to keep doing all these workouts. And obviously the NFL wants as many guys doing the workouts as possible, because that's their TV product. But I mean, if you're at the top of your position, if you're Marvin Harrison Jr., you don't need to do that. You can only hurt your draft stock. And so from that perspective, I think it does make sense for some of these top guys to only do the things that they feel are necessary with these teams and at the combine.
Yeah, absolutely. There's just no reason for these top guys to play by the NFL rules. that have been set, for generations. It's a lot different market. That's one of the things where you don't hear a lot of teams talk about it publicly, but I'd love to know, like, just like what kind of conversations they're having of like, how is this process changing? Like, how are their scouts interacting with these kids? Which, I mean, that's what they are. I mean, these are guys that are 19, 20, 21 years old, that have spent their lives online. And now we're getting to the point where we're getting guys that have spent their entire college careers in NIL money. It's a rapidly changing marketplace, and it's going to be interesting to see how teams adapt.
And these guys have had the opportunity to, at any point, if something were not to their liking, they can transfer and play next year at another school. These guys have gone through their college careers with that possibility. And some of these, obviously in past years, that wasn't the case. And, this younger generation is going to change some things.
All right, guys, we got to get out of here, though. But thank you, everyone who joined us live this morning. Make sure you stick to shawlocal.com. We're going to have plenty of content for you throughout the week as we get you set for free agents. We got the Jalen Johnson news we expect at some point today. Thank you, everyone who joined us live this morning. Make sure you follow Sean on Twitter at Sean_Hammond. You can find Michael on Twitter at mdwojak94. You can find myself on Twitter at Kyle Nabors. You can find all of our content on Twitter at Bears_Insider. One more time, go to shawlocal.com. If you're watching this live on YouTube or watching this after, we really do appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment. It helps other people find the show. We appreciate everyone who joined us live this morning. Thank you again, everyone. We'll talk to you guys later.